Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Every time we do one of these 3D printed rear suspension displays, I get really excited to show everyone because there are so many things around the suspension that you get to visually see. And of course, we can manipulate these things on the computer screen and see these changes, but this is even faster and you get to use your hands. And it translates towards the car really easily. So I'm gonna start by showing you guys each one of the control arms and what they do. So far we've designed 2 of these and we've done nothing for the front of any cars. Put in the comments what you would wanna see next and if we should do a front one. The front's gonna be a little trickier. McPherson strut, it's gonna require some kind of a strut tower, and then we're gonna need to do a steering rack, so some kind of a sliding ram. But we're down to try it. If there's enough of one car that you guys comment, we're gonna make that one. The BRZ uses a rear multi-link style suspension that is 5 points of control on the subframe and 4 points of control on the knuckle. That means one of the control arms is an A-arm, which in this case is the upper. The BRZ often requires a traction arm relocation, so we actually put both of those mounts onto this subframe so that we can see the difference between the two. Let's break things down extremely simply. So let's start with the numbered control arms. We went through and put a number on each one, which is going to correspond with a sheet that we give with this. So the lower control arm is a 2, the shock is a 5, we have the upper as number 1, the toe arm has number 3 on it, hidden there, and then the traction arm is number 4. So from the front view, what I'm gonna do is cover the control arms one by one. Let's start with the traction arm. Breaking the traction arm free and making any adjustments, you can see that it really controls the rotation of the knuckle primarily. We also put a line on each control arm that represents the OEM length and position of the arm. The next one I'm going to do is the lower control arm. And this one changes a ton of camber and toe. So this is probably why when you adjust the suspension on a BRZ, you need to get at least at a minimum the control arm and the toe arm. Let's do the toe arm adjustments next. And it's very similar to the control arm. It does a lot of toe and it does some camber. And then on the upper control arm, typically this is not adjustable. We're gonna start by adjusting the front leg first. And that really changes the rotation of the knuckle, the positioning of it, and it does camber and toe as well. But what's really gonna start happening is when you rotate the knuckle, it's going to be dramatically changing the bump steer that happens in the rear. As you push this knuckle in this direction because of the adjustment on the upper, the toe arm is going up. This is changing the arc that the toe arm is following on, and when we start cycling the suspension, you're going to see that that would create a bunch of bump steer that we definitely don't want. So that's the front leg of the upper. Let's now do the rear. And it's a similar motion. We're able to rotate it forward and back, giving us a bunch of bump steer. And it would also change the path that the knuckle follows whenever it goes through its articulation. And it's really gonna change the anti-squat as well because it's raising and lowering the traction arm mount on the knuckle side. So if I loosen now both of those and then we adjust it in and out, the upper control arm is probably the most stable way to adjust camber only. If you're able to adjust both legs at the exact same amount, it seems to be really only changing the camber, and that's primarily because we're moving it and rotating it based off of the toe arm and the lower control arm, giving it a pretty consistent motion. So that's all the control arms adjustments on the front. I'm gonna reset all the control arms to the stock positions, like I said, the green lines. I'm gonna zap this wheel off so that we can start looking at some things. Okay, so with the wheel off, we get a better look at all of these, and I'm gonna give you a close-up of how these arms actually work. So these control arms come apart and they have these teeth that line up with 2 notches in the arm. And the way it works is this pinch collar basically squeezes the end together so that you can lock it in position. And when you slide this clip back, it just allows it to jump over each tooth. Okay, so now that we don't have a wheel, let's go through all the same control arms and move them. So now that we've done all the cycling of each individual control arm, you can really gauge what each one is doing. The next thing I want to do is kind of set this thing up as if I was going to race a BRZ and what we would need to do. And then it's going to make sense as to what control arms people typically buy whenever they race it versus when they drift it. So when you're racing a BRZ, you're going to want to increase the camber in the rear while keeping in mind that you can't overextend the axles, especially on these cars. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is likely lowering the ride height. So the line indicates the factory ride height. We're probably going to lower it, who knows, around that amount. And it does look pretty similar to what I'm used to seeing. The axle typically doesn't get a great angle on these cars. From here, we would want to increase the camber, and typically that requires you to lengthen the lower control arm. So we're going to lengthen the control arm mildly, or let's just exaggerate it a little bit. And in order to correct the toe that we've now created, we would then need an adjustable toe arm. We're going to lengthen it by the same amount, give us an approximate toe that makes sense. And we might actually have to do a little bit more. You're going to be able to see from the upper view. From this point, we can then cycle the suspension and kind of get a good idea of what it's doing. Since we exaggerated the length of this, you can see that the axle would likely have been extended too far. And if you do run into that being a problem, what I would actually recommend doing, if the products are available, get an adjustable upper control arm. Because when I focused on changing the camber of this, it really handled and changed the camber well when it was only using the upper. Whereas if you use the lower and toe arm, it dynamically changes more than just the camber. Whereas the upper has a lot more control over it. So if you can get an adjustable upper, what we did on our car to go race it was in a little bit on the upper and then out a little bit on the lower and toe arm. All right, so let's set this thing up for drifting. Drifting, obviously, we're reducing the camber, opposite to road racing. So to reduce the camber on this, guys typically run the OEM upper control arm, and they would simply shorten the lower control arm and they would shorten the toe arm. And one other thing that's required when you lower the car, we're going to lower this just a little bit beyond stock, is the positioning of the wheel. When you lower these, typically the traction arm, because of its sweep, pushes the wheel back in the wheel well. So usually when guys order these traction arms, they only need to be shortened as well to recorrect the positioning in the wheel. With the traction arm modification as well, that also requires you to shorten the traction arm. So the OEM location is the higher one. When you lower it, it pushes the wheel back and you need to shorten the traction arm again. One interesting thing that you can notice with this traction arm, how much it controls your bump steer and the rotation of this knuckle. It's pretty wild. This would affect your camber curve and your bump steer dramatically in the rear, creating all kinds of different things that you probably wouldn't want to be happening on the rear. You want the rear to be quite stable. I know when drifting, a lot of guys run like dynamic toe or toe gain and things like that. But for road racing and for the general population, including myself, I prefer a linear toe curve in the rear and to set up my toe in a static position for drifting, just because there's inconsistencies when you have the rear steering every time it hits a bump. On throttle, while drifting, it allows you to have a little bit more forward drive, but then any other time through transitions, it can create inconsistencies. Drifting, from my experience, if you have a more consistent run, it will beat a slightly faster run every single time. So for the drift setup, we just simply shortened the toe arm, control arm, and traction arm to reposition the wheel. And then you could go with an upper, but what I've found is that you don't really need to with these chassis, unless you're going for a little bit extra adjustment and a little bit lighter weight, as our upper control arm is lighter than the factory one. It's quite heavy. And it is easier to take off the chassis when you go with our upper control arm, because you can just zap off the two smooth adjusters. The whole control arm drops and you would put a spare on, set it in place. That is if you crashed it or something like that. So with the drift setup, cycling it, I mean on camera, you're not really gonna notice much of a difference between the cycling when we compare a road race setup to a drift setup. But what we can do to actually visualize some changes is we can dramatically increase the length of something. And the most interesting one is going to be the traction arm. when we dramatically increase the length of it, quite a bit of toe change on this, and this is going to induce quite a bit of bump steer. Similarly, if we shorten it a bunch and do the same cycling, why don't I take the shock off actually, because it is a good thing to point out. The shock's travel range is pretty limited based on this chassis and how long it is. So if you want to do more cycling, more extreme, you can just undo it and get rid of it. So we can really start to see what this will do in extreme scenarios, and it's getting a bunch of toe change throughout that travel range. When we bring it back to stock, we're basically looking at a system that performs pretty well as intended by the OEM manufacturers. As far as the wheels dynamic control goes, the factory kinematics work quite well, obviously. And the only thing that we really need to look at when actually making corrections to this chassis in real life would be correcting for the lowering of the car. Roll center correction, bump steer correction, anti-squat correction as well on this chassis. Otherwise, this is just a really fun model to play with. And I know a lot of guys that do have shops, dynos, whatever, where people need to sit and wait. You put this on the front desk and you just say, play with me on this thing, people are gonna go to town on this. It is just a ton of fun. You can learn something every time you get your hands on it. And the more of these models that we make, you could actually hold this in your pit, looking at your car, or on an alignment rack, looking at the car, and you could say, I think I wanna do this. Let's adjust the arm extreme on this model and see if what it'll do in a minuscule level on the car is actually going to result. So if you wanted to change the length of your traction arm, you can easily tell this is going to do that to your knuckle, and then this is going to do that to your knuckle, and so on and so forth when you make these adjustments. So that's really all I have to point out for this. Thank you guys for watching this one. Like I said, let us know what you want to see us make next. That's it.